It's Thursday, February 3rd. And yesterday at Current Events we had a very interesting discussion about Brian Flores and the fact that he did not get the Giants job, and it looked like they were interviewing him just because they had a league rule that they had to interview at least one minority candidate for every, I'll call it high level. In this investigation, in this suit that he is in the process of doing to the Giants and the Denver Broncos and the Miami Dolphins, he's suing them for racial discrimination. That's what he's suing them for. But there's more to it than that. Because while these games were going on, while he was coaching for the Miami Dolphins, Stephen Ross was offered him $100,000 per game to lose. Now, Stephen Ross is the owner of the Miami Dolphins, and he thought the Dolphins were not a good enough team to get to the playoffs, and so he offered Flores, who was his head coach, $100,000 a game to make sure they lost. Because if they lost, Ross figured he would get a high draft pick, and then he could rebuild his team around that draft pick. But Flores is an upstanding guy. He sticks by the rules and the credos, and you play hard to win. You don't lose. You don't try to lose. And so he proceeded to win the last 9 games of the season. Now, this brings to mind another situation where Doug Peterson, who was the coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, they were playing, and I think it was in 2019 or 2021. No, it wasn't 2021. It was 2019 or 2020. And the Eagles were playing in the last game of the season against Washington. And the Giants had already won. And if the Eagles won the games, the Giants would have made the playoffs. But Doug Peterson, in the second half of the game, played his third-string quarterback. And the players were outraged, and the press and the Giants, everybody was outraged because the Eagles lost that game. They never had a chance to win that game with the third-string quarterback in there. So Doug Peterson's excuse was, I was determined to play the third-string quarterback because I wanted to see how good he was. Now, in this league, in the National Football League, you're supposed to try to win every game. And if you're not trying to win every game, if you're shuffling around to win draft picks, then you're really not giving 100% out on the field. And that is a very unfair situation, because if you've got a team that's dumping and you have another team that's in contention, and that other team is getting screwed because this team decided not to play hard, or maybe even the coach didn't like the other coach or didn't like the other owners. So they go ahead and they basically are dumping the game. That's not very good. That's against all the rules and all the promises that have been made to people when they watch a sporting event, that people are going out there and they're going to give 110% to try and win. So when you have coaches who decide to do that, to decide that they're not going to do something to try to win, they're just going to play somebody because they lost already, they have no hope, that's not the way the game is supposed to be played. So these are 2 different cases. But I am wondering if Doug Peterson got a bribe from the owner. And what about all the money that is gambled on these games, right? If we find out that things like what's happening to Flores is going on, what about these gambling sites like DraftKings and FanDuels that are always making offers? If the point spread is X, Y, and Z, you can get this, or you can get $100 worth of plays for nothing. if you make this particular kind of bet or that particular kind of bet. Do you think that people are going to gamble like that? Well, people will gamble on anything, but do you think that people are going to gamble on football games if they suspect that the coaches are going to rig the game? No. And maybe you would gamble if you could guess how the coach was going to do. Maybe you could gamble if you knew that the coach was going to play the third string quarterback in the game. Then you might gamble on that game. But this is wrong. This is wrong. We're getting an inside look at something that is not very good for the sport of football. Now, football was my favorite sport when I wanted to watch a sport. I like to watch golf too. But can you imagine if you're sitting down and rooting for a team and you find out later on that they didn't even play to win? That's not what the people in the stands are paying good money for. You think the people who went to the Washington Eagle-Philadelphia game that evening would have gone if they knew that there was a bet? Well, not a bet, a reward for losing the game? It's ridiculous. So this has to go much further. This suit that Flores is bringing is going to open up a lot of bad press for the National Football League. And if what he's telling us about Stephen Ross is true, then Stephen Ross shouldn't be the owner of a football team anymore, because his job is to put a winning team on the field. And if he fails at that, that's fine. He has no excuse for dumping a game because he wants a higher draft pick. That's not supposed to be in the rules of the game. Now, the other situation that happened during that lawsuit is whether or not Flores was really racially discriminated against because the Giants interviewed him after they had already hired a coach. And they were just interviewing him to meet the rule that the league had put out that said you have to interview a minority. So I don't think the rule says anything. You have to interview the minority before you've made a decision. It just says you have to interview the minority. So it's a terrible picture that we're painting here, because if the Giants interviewed him after the fact, and that's probably true, then what's the point of having this rule? Because other teams will do the same thing. The unfortunate thing in this situation was they had hired the other Brian, had leaked out before they offered Flores the interview. And 3 days before they had hired the other Brian, and Flores found out because he got an email from Bill Belichick congratulating him on getting the job, but he hadn't gotten the job. The job had gone to the other guy named Brian. So Belichick jumped the gun, but Flores went to the interview anyhow. And of course, the Giants didn't change their mind, and I don't know if during the interview Flores mentioned the fact that he knew he was only being interviewed because of the rule, so that the Giants wouldn't look bad in the National Football League rules or something. So it was a mess. It was really a mess. But the biggest thing that came out about this is the bribery to lose games so that you could get a better draft pick. That's very foolish, very dumb, and if there was a way, you should be able to strip the owner of his ownership at a discounted price too, because those teams are worth billions of dollars. So that's what I have to say this morning.